Hey guys, I just want to do a quick review on this awesome gooseneck, let me move this out of the way, this gooseneck kettle, okay, hot water kettle. I really want to call it instant hot water kettle because the max line, I can fill this up. This is a 1 liter kettle, and the max line is right underneath my fingers here, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can see the max line has an indicator right there. So this will heat that up to 212 degrees, which is boiling in 2 minutes, 15 seconds, somewhere around there. So it's much, much faster than your old traditional ones. Look at my beat up kettle here, right? This is a big guy, and what happens after a while, right? These things, they get heat up so much, they start losing the paint. It starts peeling all off. You can't clean them anymore. They're damaged. Okay, so I want to get rid of that. So we're big tea drinkers and coffee drinkers in this house. So let me go over the features on the kettle first, and then I'll tell you why it's so important that you need a temperature control when heating up some of the drinks that you currently are probably already drinking. So the first thing is that it comes on this awesome, very sleek base. I'll put the power on in a second, show you how it works. So it has a digital display, which I'll show you. I'll turn on in a second. It has a warming option button and a heat option button, and you can change the range of heat you want this to heat up to, and that's important. I know you're going to think, well, just boil everything, and that's not what you do. Okay, and I'll explain why. And then this is the heating element on top, and just a quick safety note here, don't get any water in this. If you ever get water in this, just turn it upside down, shake it gently, and then unplug it and leave it for a good 5 to 7 days. Make sure it's completely dried out so that so you don't damage the unit when you turn it back on, and more importantly, you don't hurt yourself. Okay, I haven't had that happen. I've had this for a couple of weeks. Works fantastic. Okay, so the pot itself here, the kettle pot here, as I said before, it's 1 liter. Got this very sleek design gooseneck. And the interesting part of this is that and I'll show you this in a second, is when you pour it, it comes out very smooth. Almost you got to back away and pour it very gently, or you just kind of miss the cup. Okay, it takes a little practice. I had to do that at first a couple of times. All right, so the top here has 3 holes. These are escape holes, and what that means is that when it boils up, some of the steam will come through these little holes, just so it obviously doesn't build pressure and pop off. Okay, I've had this at 212 degrees a lot, and you see a little steam coming out. Nothing, no big deal in case you're putting it under the counter, like I'm going to be putting mine. I'll show you what that looks like. And I love the fact, that brings us to point number 3 here, is that it's very slim, it's very short. You can easily slide it behind your counter space. I'll put it back where I took it out of, and I'll show you how it looks in a real counter environment. Okay, the 2 points that do get hot, don't get hot, excuse me, are the handle, really hard plastic handles, and the very top of the lid. Everything else gets very hot, so be careful when handling it. So let's pour some water in here, turn it on, show you how the adjustments work, and then we'll talk a little bit why you want to use those adjustments, which is for some of your favorite products. Okay, it's much easier for me to do it from the side, so instead of me from doing it from behind the pot, so I can show you the display up front. Okay, so the indicator right now does say that it's off. I filled it with water, snapped the cap back on. Little tip, when you're putting the cap back on, make sure that the 3 holes are on the handle side. And the reason for that is as you're pouring, you don't want water to come out, if you're pouring too fast, to come out of the 3 holes in the direction that you're pouring. It always keeps the holes to the back. So that's a little tip for you over here. So I put it back on the base, and I tap the on button. And what it does is that I can now adjust this to any temperature that I want. Now 212, which is the highest that it goes, is obviously boiling. Okay, but I'm going to be making some instant coffee. Okay, instant coffee is probably best. Most of them are actually served at 180 degrees, not 212, where you're burning your coffee. Okay, this is what's important. So the first few seconds, what it does is that it actually regulates and actually senses the water temperature inside, which happens to be 77 degrees. And then what it's doing now is slowly starting to build up and starting to heat this. So while that's going on, it only takes a couple of minutes. Remember that, and I'm going to show you this in a second, that things like instant coffee and even teas, okay, all the different varieties of teas and stuff that we have, black teas, green teas, red teas, there's all different types of teas. You can hear it boiling up. It's at 96 degrees. Teas, each tea has a very distinctive setting for the temperature that you should be setting it at, and you should be steeping it at, right? Tea, the important thing about tea is the temperature that you're introducing the tea to the water, and more importantly, how long you steep it for. So do a little research, Google the type of teas that you like, find out the temperature that you want it at, set this guy to exactly that temperature, give it a minute or two, reach that, pour it into your cup, use the correct steep time, and your tea will taste phenomenal, probably better than you ever tasted it before. Same thing with instant coffee. Instant coffee, obviously there's a bunch of different brands. Actually, each brand has a different setting for instant coffee. So Google that, check them out. I happen to know for the instant coffee here that I use for Taster's Choice is 160 to 180 degrees, not boiling, okay? So we're at 159 degrees. We set this for 180 and it's climbing. I'm just looking at my watch here. We're a little over a minute and a half, climbing in on the 2-minute mark. Okay, so it reached 180. It gave a little beep, so you have a beep indicator on here that lets you know that the pot has reached its highest temperature that you set it for. You also have an option in the settings to turn that beep off if you don't like it or not. I happen to like the beep because I'm running around the kitchen doing other things. So now it's set at 180. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off and I'm going to pour it into my cup. I'll slide this back a little bit so we can see it a little bit easier. So when I pull it off, what I do want to show you is watch the indicator. The indicator goes into E1, technically it's kind of like an error 1, E1, and then it starts a countdown. And what the countdown is doing is saying, hey, the pot's not on the base anymore and the base is on. So I'm going to run a countdown, and you can change this countdown on the settings, super easy to do. And what happens is that if this isn't placed back on here within a certain time, the base shuts off. So it's got a lot of safety features in it. And even if you put this pot back on and there's no water in it, it actually senses called a dry heat, and it senses that, and it will realize there's no water in here and the base shuts off. Great safety features. So now as I pour this into here, you'll see that I have to I do this a little gentle because the first few times I poured it too fast and I actually overshot the cup. Okay, so the gooseneck pour is extremely accurate, and you have to take your time the first time. Here we go. Right, we're at 51 seconds. I forgot what I set this for to shut off. When you can change that, it's in the directions, and I'll place it back on. Okay, return says 180, but now it's dropping because I've had this off for a few seconds. What it'll do is it'll climb up in heat for a few seconds and then slowly start to drive down, because once you put this back on again, it realizes that it's not as hot as it was a few seconds ago, so it actually climbs up a little bit in heat, 187, and then it'll just kind of slowly work its way down. So now that I've set this and I have my tea or my coffee ready to go, the top button is a keep warm button. That's awesome. So I click on this and I can adjust this. Keep warm, I usually keep to about somewhere around 140. So I'll roll this down to 140 degrees, roll it down, and the indicator for keep warm is on here. So what it's going to do is now it goes back and says, well, it's 185 degrees, and it's slowly going to lower itself until it gets to that 140 and keep my water nice and warm, and that can do for several hours, and you can adjust that time as well. Okay, some of the other indicators, but things that you may want to try is that I do go to 212 degrees, which is boiling, and if I want to make a cup of soup, instead of having the cups, I'll use the packages. I'll do that. I'll put this into a bowl. I set this to 212 degrees. Less than or slightly over 2 minutes later, I got boiling water. I pour it in there, cover it. A couple minutes later, I let it sit. I got my hot soup. Hot chocolate, your teas, your coffees. Check them out, Google them, especially your tea, guys, because each one of them has a different setting. And I'm sure you're going to find a major difference in your flavor of your teas depending on how you are heating them up. And this kettle allows you to adjust the heat any way you want for whichever product that you're using. All right, I hope you guys like this. I hope you find it helpful. I love it. I've had it for several weeks. I'm going to show you what it looks like over on the counter. So we love the convenience of having something so simple and very small. Let me back up a little bit. You guys can get a little bit better of a feel. Thanks for watching. As always, remember
subscribe to the channel, click on it, click on the little bell notification so every time that we put a new video out, you'll get alerted about it. If you have any comments and feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Drop your comments below. If you have any questions about the product, by all means, put it in the comments below and I'll be glad to answer them for you. As always, I will put a link to the product so you can click on it, go to it, read other reviews about it, or purchase it if you happen to like it. Until next time, guys, watch ManView over and over and over again like binge TV.